I was born under the vast African sun, a tiny ball of fur named Leo. But my life wasn't the royal dream you might imagine. From my first breath, I was different. While my siblings were strong and boisterous, I was small, clumsy, and my roar was more of a squeak. My father, the mighty king of the pride, looked at me with disappointment. He saw weakness, not a future leader. My mother tried to protect me, nudging me forward during feedings, but my stronger siblings always pushed me aside. The other cubs nipped at my heels, their games feeling more like punishments. I was an outcast in my own family, a shadow in the golden circle of the pride. One scorching afternoon, the final blow fell. My father gathered the pride and, with a low growl that shook the very ground, he exiled me. He declared me unfit, a burden. My mother's heartbroken cry was the last sound I heard as I was chased from the only home I'd ever known. The vast, unforgiving savannah stretched before me, a terrifying expanse of uncertainty. I was alone, a tiny cub with no one to guide me, no one to protect me. Every rustle in the grass sent shivers of fear down my spine. Hyenas laughed in the distance, their calls a chilling promise of what awaited alone. Weak cub like me, hunger gnawed at my belly, a constant, aching reminder of my failure. Days blurred into a desperate struggle for survival. I learned to hunt insects and scavenge for scraps left by mightier predators. I grew wiry and tough, my senses sharpened by constant danger. One evening, drawn by the scent of a fresh kill, I stumbled upon a scene that stopped my heart. A massive crocodile had an antelope in its death grip by the water's edge. But it wasn't alone. A lone lioness, Liane, and scarred, was trying to drag the prize away. It was a foolish, deadly gambler. She was old, her strength failing against the reptile's raw power. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to flee, but something in her defiant eyes mirrored my own lonely struggle. Without thinking, I let out the fiercest roar I could. Muster still not much, but enough to startle the crocodile for a split second. In that moment of distraction, I lunged, sinking my small teeth into the crocodile's tail. It was like biting a rock, but the surprise attack worked. The beast whipped around, momentarily releasing its grip on the antelope. The old lioness seized her chance, dragging the carcass away from the water. I scrambled back, my heart pounding. The crocodile, annoyed but uninterested in such a small morsel, slid back into the river. The old lioness, whose name I learned was Zola, looked at me, not with pity, but with a flicker of respect. She shared her meal with me that night, the first real meal I'd had in weeks. Zola became my mentor. She was a solitary hunter, exiled from her own pride years ago for defying a tyrannical leader. She saw the fire in me that my own father had missed. She taught me how to read the wind, to stalk silently through the tall grass, to use my smaller size as an advantage to be quick and clever where others were just strong. She taught me that true strength wasn't about brute force, but about a spirit that refuses to break. Under her guidance, I grew not just in size, but in confidence. My squeak deepened into a respectable roar, and my once clumsy paws learned the deadly dance of the hunt. We were an unlikely pair, the old, wise lioness and the young, determined outcast. We weren't a pride, but we were a family. Yeres passé. I was no longer the scrawny, frightened cub. I was a magnificent lion in my prime, my mane as dark as the midnight sky, my muscles honed by years of surviving on the edge. Zola was older now, slower, her golden years spent resting in the sun, but her mind was as sharp as ever. One day, a scent on the wind brought with it a flood of memories, the scent of my old pride, but it was mixed with the stench of fear and decay. Curiosity and a strange sense of duty pulled me back towards my past. We traveled for days, and what we found was a devastating sight. The pride was in shambles. A brutal pack of hyenas, larger and more organized than any I'd ever seen, had taken over their territory. They had driven the pride to the brink of starvation, picking off the weak, tormenting the strong. My father, once so mighty, was now a gaunt and scarred shell of his former self. His roar was weak, his eyes filled with despair. He had led with fear, and when a greater fear arrived, his pride had crumbled. The other lions looked defeated, their spirits broken. My siblings, who had once tormented me, now cowered in the shadows. They didn't even recognize me at first. They saw a powerful stranger, a rival. But my mother knew. She approached me slowly, her eyes wide with disbelief and a dawning of hope. She nuzzled me. Her familiar sent a comfort I thought I'd lost forever. She told me of the hyenas' ruthless leader, a cunning brute named Scarface. They had tried to fight, but the hyenas' sheer numbers and cruel tactics had overwhelmed them. My father, seeing me, only growled with a mix of shame and old arrogance. He still saw the weak cub, not the powerful lion I had become. He refused my help. He said he would rather his pride perish than accept aid from the son he cast out. His pride, however, felt differently. Delianis is there, cubs starving. Looked to me. My siblings, humbled by hardship, looked to me. They had seen strength in my eyes. The same strength Zola had seen years ago. They were ready to follow a new leader. Zola, Evelyn's strategist, helped me devise a plan. We wouldn't fight the hyenas with brute force. That's what they expected. We would use our wits. We would use their own tactics against them. We would use the land itself as our weapon. We studied their patrols, their habits, the way their leader commanded them with vicious snaps and The night of the battle arrived under a sliver of a moon. We set our trap in a narrow gorge. I stood at the entrance, a solitary figure, and let out a roar that echoed through the Canienza Challenger's call. Scarface and his clan, arrogant and overconfident, took the bite. They poured into the gorge, a cackling tide of death, expecting to overwhelm a single lion. But this was our ground. On my signal, the lionesses, hidden on the cliffs above, sent a landslide of rocks and boulders crashing down, blocking the entrance and exit. Trapping the hyenas, chaos erupted. In the confusion, my pride, my real pride, descended. It wasn't a simple battle. It was a reclaiming of our spirit. I went straight for Scarface. We met in a whirlwind of claws and teeth. A was strong, but his strength was born of cruelty. Mine was forged in loneliness, in determination, in the love of an old lioness who believed in me. I fought not just for territory, but for every cub who has ever been told they are not enough. Finally, I pinned him, my roar of victory, the true sound of a king. The remaining hyenas, their leader defeated, broke and fled in panic, scrambling over the rocks to escape. The gorge fell silent, save for the heavy breathing of victorious lions. That night, for the first time, my father looked at me with respect. He bowed his head, abdicating the throne. But I didn't want the throne the way he had ruled it. I declared that our pride would be different. It would be a family built, not on fear, but on loyalty and mutual respect. A pride where every member, strong or small, had value. Zola, my wise mentor, stood beside me, her old eyes gleaming with pride. My siblings pledged their loyalty, not out of fear, but out of admiration. We had faced the darkness together and emerged stronger. I was no longer Leo, the outcast. I was Leo, the leader who had learned that the deepest scars often forge the strongest hearts. My journey had come full circle, and under the vast African sky, our new pride roared as one.